Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 443.
The best games from 2001.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, we answer questions about the cost of wooden bits, what to do about errors in your games, the perils of two-player variants, and more. Plus, we look back 15 years with our top 10 games from 2001. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Dave to my Hal, Tom Vasel.
Eric, I need some more information on games.
I'm sorry, Tom. I can't do that.
See, now that would be a clever reimagining of a movie, but that sounded like a normal conversation we have.
Yeah, that's pretty much what always happens. Eric, do this thing. I'm sorry, Tom. I can't do that, Tom. What are you doing, Tom?
I'm going to go on record and say the movie 2001 is boring.
You know what? I've actually never seen it. I've read the book, but I've never seen the movie.
That book's okay. I know that it's like this great classic, and there's some great moments in it.
Mm-hmm.
But this was back, I guess maybe I'm part of the generation who likes stuff faster. I think today they cut too much in clips and movies and things.
Yeah.
But here they could have used a little bit more cutting.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the first Star Trek movie has like 12 minutes of unnecessary footage. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get hate mail on that one. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, thank you again for everyone for supporting our Kickstarter. I think it's over now.
I believe it's over.
So,
unless something's gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll see about that, but we keep on trucking. We keep on moving. So we've talked about this briefly in the past, but we are officially opening up the Dice Tower cruise.
Oh, boy. We're going on a boat?
Yes. That is exciting. It's in December. You can find all the details at www.dicetowercruise.com. Although for some reason, it doesn't seem to work half the time. Make sure you put HTTP in front of it. That seems to help it. I don't know why.
That's weird.
And if you can't find it, email me at dicetower@gmail.com and I'll find you the link. It's a very inexpensive cruise. Honestly, it's $500 for the cheapest per person. And that includes taxes and tips and all that sort of stuff for all your meals and everything. And we're going to have gaming on the cruise ship. We have our own dedicated game room, although you can play anywhere on the ship, really.
I guess. You can freak out the normals by just gaming anywhere.
I don't think they'll be that surprised by it. I don't know. We're going to have a decent amount of people there. I think I figured out that 1 out of every 6 people will be a gamer. That's pretty cool.
Wow, cool.
We'll be doing a couple of our game shows and a live Dice Tower, something or other there. And we'll all be there. So it's a really good place. If you want to hang out with us, honestly, this is going to be one of the best places to do it.
Yeah, because we can't run away. We're on a boat.
Well, there's that. But also just there's going to be less people there. It's like going to a nice small convention.
Yeah.
I do expect this to sell out. Technically, it could have sold out by the time you hear this, but I doubt that.
No, I think this should be a little bit more of a slow burn.
But we feel, given the rate that they're going, that it will sell out.
Okay.
So make sure that you get in, find out the information on that. We can answer questions. We can help out in whatever we can in that regard. So we hope to see you guys. That's this December. And if it goes well, it will become an annual thing. So
nice.
Very much looking forward to that. So that's coming in December.
Oh, hey, Future Eric here from the Forgotten Shoutouts department. Yeah, sorry, we had some backers from 2015 that we, lost somewhere. But I do have a message. This is for the Thursday night game group. Tim, Jay, Kevin, Tom, Brian, Dylan, and Doug. They want you to know that if there's a hidden traitor in your midst, it's probably Kevin. Thanks.
All right, it's time to talk about games.
Let's do that.
Hit me up, Eric.
Well, the first one I want to talk about is called Skyway Robbery. You are a passenger. We're talking about a cruise. You are a passenger on an airship that is traveling from place to place, sort of a random string of locations. I think it's 5 throughout the course of the game. And you are also a criminal. You are putting together a team. Of course you are. Everyone on a cruise ship is a criminal. You are trying to put together a team to get past various defenses to collect loot. Each port you stop at has some sort of major score, some big deal treasure that you can possibly steal. And as you progress, they're numbered locations, and so you start with the lowest number, move to the highest number in this random draw of locations. So the stuff gets more difficult to get, and you have to keep acquiring crew members and equipment and stuff like that to get past all of these different traps. It's kind of like Indiana Jones. You got to get past the wheel of death or the floating platforms or the poison gas and stuff like that. Some of these obstacles are random each time you encounter them. Sometimes they are fixed as part of the location. Not only do you have the big treasure at each port, but there's also some smaller scores that you can do on the ship itself. You can try and break people out of the brig to acquire more crew members at a lower cost. You can recruit more crew members, get more equipment. You can even fight with the locals to try and earn some prestige just by, toughing things up. And you do all this by collecting all these cards and going at, you select your actions. That's what you have to do. Each round of the game, you will select 3 action cards. Everybody's got the same set of action cards. There's one that says acquire resources, and there's one that says just take $2 from the bank. And then there's ones that are illegal actions that are stuff like break people out of prison or try for the local heist. And when you play that and you execute that card, you will then play some of your guys out. Here's all of my henchmen. If you play more than 2, you make it harder because you have to roll these sort of alert dice. And then the more people you bring, the more noise you make using certain equipment, the more other players play alert cards like anonymous tips that cause all of the illegal jobs after that card shows up to be more difficult. You have to roll these dice, and let's see, 4 out of the 6 faces on those dice have you arresting some of your henchmen. You have to have at least one henchman survive a particular heist in order to actually get the loot home. And if you do that, you get the stuff, earning points, earning money that you can then use to hire more stuff. And you continue along, going from location to location. You have, I think, 4 turns in any one location to try and steal the major goal. But if somebody steals the major loot, you just move on to the next location. And once you reach the end of the path, the game is over. You score up points and see who manages to win.
Now, I got to say, before you give your final opinion, you're making it sound fun.
Good. I enjoyed it. It is pretty fiddly, though. I like the puzzly nature of seeing all of this stuff in front of me. How do I make all of this work? How do I get past these puzzles? Because some of these defenses are powered. They're run on electricity, and you can get past a different defense to shut down the power if you have the proper symbols on your cards, and maybe shut down multiple other obstacles and get through those that way. So there's usually multiple ways to get through the more difficult puzzles. How do I make all this work? Each person can only hold one piece of equipment, all of that stuff. And I enjoy that part of it. But there's a lot of upkeep. Every time you get past an obstacle, you have to bring out another one. You have to get past all the stuff that's in front of you, but if somebody gets through something ahead of you, all of the stuff that's in front of you now gets replaced. All the obstacles they got past get replaced, and you may now be hosed because you can't get past those particular obstacles. You can't prepare for every obstacle in the game, even if you try and acquire cards like crazy. In fact, the equipment was so, we ran out of equipment cards because we were trying so hard to prepare for everything, be ready for everything, that we ran out of equipment, which seemed a little weird. Like, well, I just can't buy anything else. That's it. We're stuck. And so if you don't have a particular card in your hand, you're just sort of hosed getting past that obstacle. So I liked it as a puzzly adventure, but it seemed to overstay its welcome just a hair. I'd like to try it again to see if that's still the case. Maybe there's different powers. Each player character has 2 possible powers and dirty tricks they can pull. I'd I'd like to see how those work together and how different locations come into play. But I'm a little wary. I don't know if it's quite the awesomeness that it looked like on the front of the box. It's one of those games that looking at the rules, you can't really get a sense of how it's going to play until you actually get it to the table and see how these mechanisms work together. I liked it, but I'm hesitant. Skyway Robbery.
Now, this is a Kickstarter, I'm guessing.
I believe it was. It's a Game Salute title.
Well, Kickstarter. Yeah. I'm just starting to wonder. I mean, we're seeing some good stuff from Kickstarter, but I'm not yet seeing it become like consistently good. We're seeing a lot of pretty good stuff come, sometimes good, I guess, but it's missing. You can really tell that these games are missing an seeing developers' hand on them.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can lump all Kickstarter projects together. I don't think you're ever going to see consistent high quality from Kickstarter.
No. And I agree on that. But I mean, I'm talking about we're still not seeing. It's still to the point where I'll play a game and I'll go, this was a Kickstarter, wasn't it? Now, there's two reasons for that. One is somehow the backers' names are in the game. We got one game recently. I forget what the game was, but it had like different items in the game, and every item on the counter, on the back of the counter, it had the person's name.
Whoa.
Who had backed it. I was like, what? They're not even trying to like add this to the game.
Well, now they're literally backers because they're on the back of the token.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Balupa. I don't know. And so that's one way you can tell if something's Kickstarter. Sometimes I'll look at the art and I'll go, wait a minute, this is Kickstarter, isn't it? Because that guy doesn't look like he's from 1830. He looks like he's from 2016.
You know what, though? I should say that the art on Skyway Robbery is pretty nice. There's some gorgeous vistas as you go to these different locations, and the icons for having a ton of icons, it's pretty clear what you're doing. And, dealing with a giant board with a bunch of cards all over it, that's a lot of information to process. And I think they did a pretty nice job laying it out well.
Well, who knows? I got to be careful. It's possible. And again, I'm not here to disparage Kickstarter, but what I'm saying is if you're using Kickstarter, that doesn't excuse you from, I'm not going to cut your game slack. Like if a publisher didn't properly develop their game, I'd call them out on it. So the same thing for a Kickstarter game. Mm-hmm. Case in point, Dark Age Z, which sounds like Z Garcia has gone evil.
It does.
And he's coming for us all.
Yes.
But it is about zombies. Big surprise there.
Golly.
However, I have to give the game its theme made us chuckle because essentially you are like knights in a castle and you're defending this castle against hordes of zombies that have come from a portal in the future, like today. And so you are occasionally finding artifacts amongst the zombies. And then they would call it like, Eye of the Eagle. Well, that's binoculars. Or the holy something and it's a hand grenade, things like that. So I thought that was a funny theme. The game is these zombies are showing up. And depending on how many players are playing, and I believe it goes to 6, which I think would be sheer insanity, honestly, to play with that many players. And that's, I think, coming up later on in next episode, right?
Yes.
But we have these like walkways that go up to the castle gates that the zombies are marching on. And there's one between every 2 players. So if I'm sitting next to Eric and next to Sam, me and Eric are working on one and Sam and me are working on one. And then Eric might be next to Julie and Eric and Julie and then Julie and Sam, whatever.
Right.
So we're trying to stop the zombies. And so we'll get points for taking those zombies out on that side. But we'd also lose points if the zombies break free and smash down the gate. And so you were doing this by a bit of a worker placement game and getting different soldiers and archers and cavalry and sticking those in these different areas and trying to stop the zombies. Problem is your footmen might kill like 3 zombies and then the zombies overwhelm them. Then the footmen turn into zombies and it just kind of snowballs.
Oops.
The game is fine. And I played it and I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. And then we played it some more and I was like, oh, So you like math, huh? Yeah, I like math. Good, because you need a degree. You don't need a degree, but the game is super mathy.
Yeah.
You'll sit there and go, okay, these zombies have 5 hit points. This troop does 8. If I back him up with an archer, that gives him 3 more. If I do this over here, reinforce him with this card, that will give him 2 more. So that will kill a certain number of zombies, who will then kill him, and he'll add 2 zombies. And then the next guy will do this. And it's like, oh, are you kidding me? So it makes individual turns kind of lengthy, because you're sitting there trying to make sure you put the right guy out. That's one problem it has. I don't mind the mathiness so much. I'm a little disappointed. The card artwork is beautiful, and you have these nice, like Lancelot and Joan of Arc, and I think some other people show up to help you. That's great. But the zombies are cubes. They don't even need to be cubes. They could have been anything. They're cubes. And they're just marching to the castle, and it's just... if the zombies break through and get to the gates on any one of the passageways, you lose points for that. You can literally end the game with no points. And if they break through, you don't get better between each round. Like after the first round, you're like, oh, the second round's good because some of my soldiers survived. And, well, the zombies get harder each round, so, but some of my soldiers survived. In the second round, you're like, yeah, and then they kill everybody. In the third, fourth, fifth round, like in the fifth round, if they killed almost all the troops in the fourth round, then they get even stronger in the fifth round, and you're like, well, okay, well, let's just see what we can do to survive at all. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to fight off hordes of anything, but if you don't get stronger, not quite as interesting.
Right.
So, I wanted to like it. The mechanisms of the game are fine. There is certainly luck in the cards that you draw, but it's also that snowballing effect. If you do badly, you will continue to do badly. And just that, and also it's super long and it's kind of mathy. Again, this is stuff I think that developers could have fixed some of it. But it's okay. That's Dark Age Z.
Next up for me is a new cooperative game from Victory Point Games called Healthy Heart Hospital. You are running a hospital. You have 5 doctors, or rather 4 doctors and 1 administrator. No matter how many people you have playing the game, you just divvy those guys up. They all have special abilities and superpowers and stuff like that. The object of the game is to survive the ambulance deck, which represents cubes, patients coming into your hospital, and you have to triage these guys, get them into the wards, get them into operating rooms. You have to build the operating rooms to begin with and treat them and not lose too many of these patients. It's all run by a cube bag or a cube cup. You got a bunch of wooden cubes in the different disease colors. There's 5 disease colors and also some black cubes that cause nasty things to happen, like having to pull 2 more cubes every time those things show up. So ambulances arrive, you get 2 ambulance cards, and they say pull 4 cubes on this side and 7 cubes on this side. You pull them out and you sort of shuffle them into rows, and the more cubes of a color you have on a space, the worse that patient is.
Wait,
and if you,
what are cubes again?
Well, they sort of represent the diseases of the people who are there.
So the cubes aren't the people.
No, not at first. Like a stack of cubes is one person. So if I've pulled 4 blue cubes on this side, that is a really bad trauma patient, and I need to get them into a ward very quickly.
That sounds confusing.
A little bit. And then if you draw too many cubes, if you draw your 5th cube and they're still in the waiting room, they die. They can't handle it anymore. So you want to get them out of there because you're drawing cubes every round. So if you move somebody into a ward, you spend an action to move them into one of the 5 wards. Then they become a bed token instead of cubes, and you put those cubes in the discard pile. And if you move them into the operating room, they just become like a little EKG monitor with a little slider to tell you what's going on. If they're in those advanced rooms, they're going to get worse less quickly, I guess. In the wards, they only draw 1 cube at a time, and if you draw the color of the disease that they have, then they get worse, but if not, then they're fine. In the operating room, they only get worse if you leave them alone. Now, in order to treat these patients, you have to pull from that same cube cup. You pull out a certain number of cubes based on where they are. In the waiting room, you don't get any basic cubes. Some doctors can give you some bonuses, but in the wards, you'll pull like 6 cubes. In the OR, you'll pull 8 cubes, and you can get an advanced OR and pull 10 cubes. So you're just starting to pull all sorts of cubes. Doctors have bonuses. You can get nurses in different sections. And if you get the matching color, they get better. But if you draw those black cubes, they get worse. So it is possible for you to try and treat somebody, pull 8 cubes and get more black cubes than the color you're looking for and make them worse. Or just outright kill them. If you kill them, you have to find a place to put them. There is a certain number of spaces to put the deceased. It costs more and more money as you do that. You lose prestige as you do that. And if you run out of places to put them or run out of money to pay for this sort of thing, you lose. As you gain prestige, you get the ability to hire more doctors and nurses and administrators and people who are going to help you. You can also spend money to train your doctors and just sort of make your guys stronger. But you're going to be so busy moving the cubes around that you might not get a chance to do that. It sounds interesting. And it looked interesting, and the art design is cool. It's got this nice retro feel. I think there's a lot of thought into the design. They have these medical tokens that it's not the caduceus. The caduceus is the 2 snakes wrapping around the pole. This is only the single snake, and I totally forgot what the name is, but it's the actual medical designation that's on these tokens. And when you flip it over to say, I've used this action, the snake looks tired. It's cute. But you are pulling cubes from a bag like 50,000 times throughout the course of this game. And while at first you're going, this is interesting. Okay, I can move this guy. This guy needs to be moved. This is good. Let's treat this guy. But then you're pulling again. How many cubes are you pulling this time? 13. Okay, pull 13 cubes. And then you're counting those cubes because you know how many of each color you have. You know how many black cubes are in the bag, and you're starting to play the odds. Well, all right, I think there's probably like 6 cubes left in the bag, and I know there's 2 black cubes in there, so do we want to try curing the red patient? He's going to die if we draw a red cube, but what's the odds of we drawing a red cube later? It just sort of dragged to a halt. And everything else seems to click. It's an interesting system. It does things that are unlike other co-ops. But you're pulling cubes from a bag a million times, and it dragged. And by the end of the game, we didn't care whether we won or lost because it was just like, okay, this is not fun anymore. And I'm really disappointed in that because it looked like a lot of fun when we got started. That's Healthy Heart Hospital.
All right, well, we need to get cranking here on like positivity. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about Mangrovia. This is a Zoc game. I believe it's a couple years old at this point. And this is one of those games that if it was a heavier game, I might slap it around and be like, what's this game all about? But because it's a light game or on the lines of Ticket to Ride, it's essentially you're building out little houses on this grid on this island of Mangrovia, and you're doing so by drafting by taking cards from a face-up display that match the colors you can build on and the numbers you can build on. So a place might say 12, and it's on a forest. So to build a hut there, I need a forest card, and I need a 6 and 2 6 cards. I can put those together and make 12, or what have you. So you set up this turn order, and each person in turn wherever you pick, you get different actions. So one might say, draw 2 face-up cards and 1 face-down card. Draw 1 face-down card and build a house on the board. Except also, whoever picks go first the next turn, they can decide there's 4 different terrains, so they can pick which 2 terrains you can build on next turn. You can't build on the other ones. And that's basically it. The game is just about getting these cards and then using these cards to put out things. I don't know how else to explain it. It's in that same line as Ticket to Ride. It's like, oh, I draw some stuff and use that stuff to put stuff out immediately, instant gratification. I need to put it in the right, some places give you high points. Some places have lower points, but if they're in certain columns and rows, whoever has the most in that column and row will get extra points. And even now, as I'm saying this, I know this sounds like the game that I often rag upon, but because it's so light and simple and easy to get into with beautiful pieces and a nice, colorful board, I liked it. So that's Mangrovia from Zoc.
Last for me is an iOS implementation of Splendor. I decided to pick this up based on our colleague Suzanne's recommendation. She posted on Twitter recently that there was a new update for this iOS game, which is produced by Days of Wonder, which is kind of cool, that uses some new challenges. And I said, you know what? I'd like to pick up Splendor. And the implementation is gorgeous. It's very easy to see what's going on. You can easily check and see how many chips you have in front of you, what you're able to buy on any given turn. Even as you're grabbing the chips in the game, you can see what you will be able to buy on a future turn based on what you've drawn. But what's neat is that the game comes with a bunch of solo challenges, which tweak the rules in different ways and force you to sort of think differently about how the game is played. In one, I was given like 3 chips of each color at the beginning, but I would never get those chips back. So I had to buy and build up my engine so I could then afford later cards because I would lose if I got stuck. And I had to earn like 60 points in order to win, which is an interesting challenge. And each one of these tweaks the rules in different ways, keeps it interesting. There's even an AI that you can play against and try and complete those challenges. I found it to be very interesting, great for pass and play. I'm looking forward to teaching my son next time we have time to wait somewhere and I can pull out the iPad and play Splendor on the iOS. Big thumbs up.
Well, I'm glad to hear a good recommendation of an app. One of the apps that I've been waiting for years. Years. I mean, we're talking many years at this point, is the Dominion app.
Oh, yes. I've heard bad things.
Oh, now I've heard awful things from the currency. They make you buy a fake currency to buy the expansions. And then
it doesn't match up. Like if you can buy them in only certain units, but then the you have to buy 50 and the expansion costs 40. And so now you're left with 10 useless currency bits.
Right. And then it only works when you're online.
Ugh.
And and the implementation's not very good. And it's like, oh, well, that makes sense because Dominion came out last year and this is come on now. Boo. And I cannot say boo loud enough on that. That is a terrible thing. Ascension was an amazing thing. They should have let that same company do it. Was that Playdeck?
Sure.
What's that company called?
Playdeck, yeah.
Playdeck, yeah. Those guys are great. Boo. Okay, but anyhow, let me tell you, Eric.
Yes?
The plot of Star Wars Episode 4. Don't worry, folks. I'm not talking about the new one. This one came out 30 plus years ago. And if you haven't
alert.
Seen it now, it's your fault. But the beginning of the movie, Darth Vader captures Chewbacca and asks Chewbacca, where is the rebel base? Chewbacca does not tell him. So Darth Vader blows up Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet. This infuriates Chewbacca, and Darth Vader plans to do many other things to him, but Han Solo rescues him, and they escape.
Wow.
And so there's a whole pile of other things that happen, but eventually at the end, the Empire never actually finds the rebel base, and so the rebels garnish enough support to win the war and eventually destroy the Empire.
That's episode 4?
That's episode 4.1, the Vasel version. Now, what I just told you was the plot of one of our games of Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is an upcoming game from Fantasy Flight that is essentially Star Wars in a box.
Okay.
One person is playing the Imperials. The other person's playing the Rebels. The Rebels, and has a big map of all the different planets that were in the different movies for Star Wars. And there's lots of miniatures. I think there's like 120 miniatures. So there's Star Destroyers. There's multiple Death Stars. There is TIE Fighters and X-Wings and Y-Wings and Corellian Corvettes and Mon Calamari Cruisers.
Yeah, I've got the soundtrack playing in my head already. Yep.
Yes, it's very exciting. And I play the soundtrack. But so at the beginning of the game, the Rebel player is picking where on the map their secret base is. So in this game that I was just talking about, the Rebel base was actually on Dantooine, which is, if you remember from the actual movie,
right,
That's where Princess Leia told Darth Vader the base was, but it wasn't.
Yes.
Sam thought that was funny.
Yes.
I
would think that's funny.
Yeah, right. So anyhow, so the Empire is like using probe droids and things, and there's like a deck of cards, and you draw a card from a deck. It shows you a planet. You know that planet's not that's not where the base is. And you can also narrow it down. Like today we played another game. As of the recording of this, we played another game, and I captured General Rykian, and we tortured and interrogated him with one of those interrogating droids. And then Sam had to tell me 3 planets on the board, and one of them had to be where the base was.
Wow.
So, but just when you know where the base is. Okay, so Sam, I figured out where the base was. I used General Veers, and I popped in a bunch of stormtroopers on a planet, on one of those 3 planets. It was the one I figured that they were on. And I was right. So immediately, every Imperial unit I had, Star Destroyers, Death Star, everything started heading there. But it takes a while to get there. See, the Rebel player wins by dragging the game out. There's a time track, but they also have different missions that they have to do. And if they get these missions done, they get points, and their points move on the time track. And if their point counter ever reaches the time counter, the Rebels win. So I'm trying to get to this because all the Imperials have to do to win is destroy the Rebel base.
Right.
So I'm moving there. I'm going as fast as I can. And we are literally outside when a bunch of Rebel ships show up. And I know I can beat these Rebel ships, and I did. I destroy them, except one of them blows up the Death Star. Piloted by Luke Skywalker, really annoying guy. Don't like that guy. And then the time ran out. Oh no, then he played an evacuation and got a few people out of the base. But I couldn't find the new base in time because I had sent every single Imperial unit towards his current base, which incidentally is a bad idea. Because I would have destroyed his base. I was actually going to blow it up with the Death Star.
Yeah.
Then when he sent them off to Yavin, which was where the base was in the movie.
Yep.
He sent them there, and I didn't have any forces that were even close there. I had a couple stormtroopers sitting around. This game is big. All right. We're talking a 3-hour game, although our game today took 2 hours, 30 minutes. That wasn't bad.
Okay.
But it's a big, grandiose game. It is in the same category as War of the Ring. It's in the same category as Twilight Struggle. This is a game that is Star Wars in a box. You have all different characters. There's Darth Vader and Boba Fett and the Emperor and Luke and Han and Chewie and Leia and Lando. And you use these people to do different missions. And it's very cinematic. You know, like I had Boba Fett. I was about to capture Han Solo. And then Luke, I was going to capture Luke. But then Han Solo came in and rescued him. It was so annoying. And then I try to capture people and put them in carbonite, and different people show up throughout the thing. It's really fun. And it's actually not that rules heavy for a game of this length and stuff. There's just a lot of really good strategic options. I love this game.
Cool.
I think it's hilarious. Jason played it on Saturday and said, this is the best game of the year by far. Game of the year. I said, okay. Jason, it's January.
It's January.
You can't really make a claim like that this early. He's like, oh, no. However, I would be astounded if it's not in my top 10 of the year, or even top 5.
Okay.
It's that good of a game.
Wow. Now, 2-player only, or can it play more?
It's 2 players or 4 players, but it's that typical 4-player nonsense where it's like, hey, you control the Navy and the other guy controls the Army.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. So it's basically a 2-player game where you can have 2 people working together on a side.
Right.
That's okay. It's like saying War of the Rings, a 4-player game.
Right.
It technically is, but it's not. Beautiful components. It's not a cheap game, but I think you'll get your money's worth. If you like Star Wars, you'll like the game. If you don't like Star Wars, then don't get it. Because the theme is that tied to the rules and everything.
Right.
But fascinating game.
Okay.
That's Star Wars Rebellion.
Mr. Vasel. Tom. Tom Vasel, will there be a Dice Tower theme park?
If you were a die, what sort of die would you be?
Will there be a Vicious Fishes movie? And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Jay has a short and simple question about games with wood pieces. Is the cost for these games driven by the cost of manufacturing the wood, shipping the wood due to weight, or is it a combination of both? He understands that plastic minis have added cost due to manufacturing, as a mold is not a cheap venture, but he thinks a wooden cube would cost far less. But as I have no base for comparison, I don't produce games, I thought I would ask you. As far as I can tell, wood is often cheaper than plastic when it comes to custom stuff, right?
Right.
Obviously, custom plastic miniatures cost a lot. Plastic itself is cheaper than wood, so you'll see the real cheap games have those plastic pawns that look like sorry pawns.
Right. I mean, it used to be that the quality comparison was plastic is so much less good than the nice wooden German games coming out of Europe. These cheap American plastic things like sorry pawns, we don't want those.
And
but
I
now
know
everybody
that
wants
wood is
plastic
not
minis.
cheap. I know cubes aren't that expensive, but getting custom wooden pieces is not that inexpensive. I mean, it's not cheap, really. However, I'm not really sure that this matters because usually when a game has a pretty high price point on it, it's either because it's rare and a company made a small print run of it. So say Splatter, for example. People aren't defending their components, but their games are pretty pricey for what they are, but that's because of the scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not scarce, those games with just wooden pieces, they're not as expensive as the plastic ones, that's for sure. The plastic ones are hitting $100, like we just talked about Star Wars Rebellion. That's pricey. I mean, most of the games with wood are like $50 or $60. And again, folks, really, when you get upset about the prices of games, please go check out on the internet. They have inflation calculators. Things go up. It happens. It's part of life. And I was thinking how when I was a kid, I remember distinctly Axis and Allies cost $50 and thinking it was expensive back then, but that's easily $100 today.
Yeah.
Prices of games are going up because so is the cost of living in general.
True.
And so we'll be like, well, when I bought such and such a game, it wasn't $100. Yeah, but that was probably over a decade ago. So anyhow, I know someone's going to come on the forums and make this post about something about money, but really look it up. Games are not really getting that much more expensive when you factor in inflation. They really aren't.
Jeff says, on the show, we often talk about games that have killed other games because they provide a similar experience as another game, but are better in most respects. I was wondering if you've ever had a game that was killed by another game that later came back from the dead. Maybe a new expansion brought life to the dead game, or perhaps the game that did the killing didn't hold up over time, while the first game had better staying power. It's like revenge of the killed game.
That's a good question. For me, I think, off the top of my head, Dominion. I thought Trains killed it.
Yeah.
But as time went by, I kind of didn't play much of Trains and started playing a lot more Dominion.
Interesting.
Because even though Trains has a cooler thing, there's a board and there's other stuff going on, they never really added expansions. The expansions were good, but it just, I don't know. Dominion has that depth in it that Trains didn't. And it's also a lot easier to set up and play.
I don't know if I've had anything that was fully replaced that come back, but I have had a game on the trade pile. Eminent Domain was on my trade pile for a little while, and then the expansion. I got the expansion that sort of breathes some life back into it, and has it firmly in the collection now. So that's one, but I don't know if anything has completely been replaced and then come back because, I mean, if it's replaced and you get rid of it, are you really going to play it anymore?
If a game is in the forest and no one plays it, is it fun?
No, because it's just a box.
David says, when you purchase a new game and there are errors on cards, components, etc., do you make corrections on them for ease of play? or print the errata and keep it with the game.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think how often this happens. I mean, minor errors that don't matter, I don't even care, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if let's say it's game changing, I'm trying to think of one.
Well, there was
like
this one game, what was it called? Nothing Personal. Had some errors on the board.
Yeah, they made stickers for that.
And there were stickers. I mean, I'm fine putting stickers on the board if that's the correction. The first edition of Age of Steam had a correction that needed to be stickered. Like with a card, though, like say the stats on a card are off. Oh, this card should have had a 2 instead of a 3, and so really the balance is off if you play it as a 3, so really you should be a 2. I mean, unless you're sleeving the cards and can stick a little note in there, you probably should just marker it. I think that's what I'd do.
I think that's what I would do. I'm trying to think of some particular cases of this happening. I remember Twilight Imperium, and I would just say, okay, everyone, it's wrong on your board, but it's right on the card, so just go by the card.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes with this stuff, if it's just a little balance tweak, I often just play it as printed.
Maybe I should make this a question of the week. See what all our contributors think.
I think we'd get a good variety of responses. I think if I needed to change it, I would go the route of Sharpie. Like, what was the edition of Pandemic? There was a Pandemic edition that missed a connection. I think the first printing of the new version was missing a connection on some of the boards. You Sharpie. Rather than play without it.
Yeah, well, to me, that's an easy one because you're just drawing a line on the board.
Right. I think the legacy games have sort of desensitized me to this sort of thing. You got to fix it. Just do it.
Eric has been changed forever by Rob.
I have. I am my own legacy game. I'm different. I'll never be the same. But aren't we all, in a way? Peter is an American living in Germany for the past few years. He's only recently, however, become invested in the board gaming hobby and finding out about many of the quote-unquote better games. He played card games as a kid, including Bridge, but the only board game he ever got into was Monopoly. But now he's really getting into the hobby. Now, this fall, or possibly last fall, because
I feel like this may be a very late answer to your question.
It could be like
Peter.
the previous fall. This could be a 2013 question. As this fall will likely be my last living in Germany, I am wondering if I should make the effort to attend Spiel in Essen. Apart from the obvious reason for the chance to meet some of you guys from the Dice Tower, is it worth it for a new board game hobbyist to attend conventions? Would I be missing a huge opportunity to not attend Essen? I've heard from your overview last year that there is a lot to see. Does it make sense to attend for just one day, or would you suggest that if you're going to go to any convention, it should be for the whole time?
I might argue that that's not necessarily the obvious thing to go to meet us.
It's hard to find us.
That's a very nice thing to say. But I don't know if I would say that.
I think taking the opportunity to visit Essen if you're in Germany is, yes, if you're there at the right time and you are interested in games, yes, go see it. And yes, you can go for one day. You will miss things, but you can go for one day and have an amazing, busy day and see a lot and play a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, past Peter, go to Essen in the fall of 2015.
Well, maybe we've actually met him and we don't know it.
Maybe we have. Maybe that could be the case. He may have said, hey, I wrote to you and you never told me to come, but I'm here anyway. And in a more general sense, I think it is a good idea for a relatively new gamer to go to a convention. I'd suggest one maybe a little smaller to start with. But it's an excellent opportunity to get the social aspect of the hobby, meet some new gamers, play some stuff, sort of make some connections outside of just exploring the games on your own.
Gamer Stewart says, over the past few years, I've been really getting into the hobby of board gaming. And he has several games that play great with 3 or more players. And he notices several include 2-player variants in the rules. Most of these, like Seven Wonders of Catan, include each player taking turns controlling a sort of robot third player, giving the game a less interesting dynamic that is often not worth playing, says Gamer Stewart. Are two-player variants for 3 or more player games ever good? Are they actually worth playing? Have you ever played a two-player variant that didn't completely change the game in a bad way? Have you ever played a game that said it played 2 or more players in a box, but upon opening found that it was really a 3 or more player game with a bad two-player variant tacked on the side? I like his questions, Eric.
Oh, they are good questions, and I think he's already made the distinction here. The robot concept, the neutral player concept, is usually not a great thing, and I actually can't think of a robot like the neutral robot. Does sometimes offer an interesting challenge because you'll have neutral pieces or something, and if you're able to control them, it might be neat to block your opponent using them. They're not as cool as your own pieces, but you know, I don't know, they may have a different value to you. It's an interesting challenge, but he's right. It changes the game pretty significantly. And the two-player rules that work are ones that don't change much at all. It's just instead you're using a smaller map. You're using fewer pieces. It just changes the scale slightly, but the character of the game remains, and that is a two-player version that works. So there's the big distinction. And yes, I have opened up a game and found that the two-player version is significantly different from what I would have explained. And it's pretty obvious when you first go to the rules. In big red text, it'll say, for tips on the two-player setup, see the end of the rules. It's like, oh, man. I got to set everything up differently and deal out different cards now. And now I'm controlling gray pieces on half the turns, and you're controlling the gray pieces on the other half of the turns. I'd love to know if there is a good... This is an excellent question. And maybe somebody in our guild can identify a two-player robot variant that actually works.
I hate them. Eric said they're not good. I hate them. I especially hate a dummy hand. I hate it, and I know it's a big part of Bridge, but I hate it. A robot player. Kingsburg is okay with the dummy player. Have you played it with 2, Eric?
No.
Kingsburg is okay. You basically just roll some dice and block off some stuff.
Actually, you know one that I have enjoyed? I haven't actually played it with just 2, but I like the Literal Robot expansion for Power Grid that has an AI sequence.
Hate the robots and Race for the Galaxy.
Okay.
Okay, but there are good two-player variants in games before. Some games, I'm not having any come to mind right now, but I know I played games and like, oh, the two-player variant's actually pretty fun. And there are some multiplayer games where 2 is the best number to play it with. But there are a lot of games that put 2 in the box, and they really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And if they don't put 2 in the box, then I'm even more suspicious when it's like, oh, but you can play this with 2. Yeah, right.
I have seen at least one box that puts the 2 in parentheses.
That's a good
or
idea.
says two-player variant included or something. It does actually it makes a distinction between the 3-player version and the 2-player version of the game.
Eric.
Yes?
This is not our Eric, I think.
Oh, yes.
Says, I'm curious to know what board game podcasts and videos y'all watch that are not part of the Dice Tower Network. And what you appreciate about those different voices. Also, do you have any friendly rivalries with out-of-network game reviewers, and how do those manifest themselves? A swift punch to the gut when I meet them at conventions?
Wow.
No, I mean, I don't know what. Okay, first of all, I actually do not listen to any podcast that's not part of the Dice Tower Network that isn't about games.
Okay.
Because there's so many in the network anyway. I got plenty of stuff from there.
It's true, yes.
For videos, I don't often watch a lot of people's videos because I don't have a ton of time. I've watched the odd episode of Tabletop. I watch Rodney's stuff from Watch It Played. And I'll watch the odd review here and there. Sometimes I'm curious what someone else thought about a game. Like I might watch Dan King's review or some of the other guys. Most of the out-of-network reviewers on the video thing, I got a pretty good relationship with them. I talk to them. I mean, like Dan Kane called me. We talked for a while just tonight, and most of the guys at conventions, I get along with them well. Most of them.
I mean, it's a pretty amicable group. As far as podcasts, I'm not as regular a listener as I used to be, but I have listened to Garrett's Games and Geekiness. Doug and Shelley do a really nice, quick podcast about what they've played lately, and they often put a lot of new Euro games on my radar because they're in those circles. And they just hit their 500th episode, which is incredible. And also the guys from the Spiel. I haven't listened to them as often as well, but they've recently sort of changed formats and gone in a different direction, and exciting things happening for Stephen and David. It's fun to listen to them and sort of hear what's going on in their different spheres, because you can sort of get a little insular knowing we're all Dice Tower Network, but it's kind of neat to hear other perspectives that are playing in different circles.
And I think that's it for questions. We need to get to top 10 list.
All righty.
We'll do some more questions next episode, folks, or we're never going to catch up. Well, I mean, we're never going to catch up.
We're never going, no.
But we want to answer questions in the year they were asked. To the top 10.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
Well. 2001, 15 years ago.
Wow.
We're getting old, Eric.
Yes, indeed.
All right, before we get into our top 10 list, the year 2001. I'm just going to come out and say it. Not a great year for gaming. As I look at my top 10 list, I have none. I should say none. Okay, I have the top 5 in my collection. That's it. And I have 300 games, so only 5 of those 300 games are from 2001. As opposed to, let's see, last week we talked about 2006. Two episodes ago we talked about 2006. Many of those. And then 2011. Oh, yes, a lot.
Yeah.
2001. And there's a lot of very popular games that came out in 2001 that I just don't like at all. I can't really say their names because most of them are on Eric's list.
Oh, great.
No,
I'm looking forward to that.
Not really, but several of them are on Eric's list. How's that?
Yeah. I actually have most, aside from, looks like only 2 are not in my collection. So maybe I'm a little more positive about these games than you are.
So you think it was a great year for gaming?
I'm not going to say great. It was a little spotty. I mean, looking at the list of the short list, there were a lot that I said, oh no, that's not making the list. No, that's not making the list. So it wasn't as strong as some of the others that we've mentioned. This is also just as I was starting to get into the designer hobby. So my experience is a little more spotty in here as well.
And I agree on that too. So same here, although I've in retrospect played a lot of these games. Many of these games fall into that list of, oh, well, that was good, but it was replaced by.
Sure.
And some of these games have been reprinted a couple times. And there's one game that's on both Eric's and my list that we're still waiting for the reprint.
Yeah.
I believe it's been announced for 2017 now.
Really?
All right. Do you know what game that I'm talking about?
I can actually think of 2, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, let's jump into the list because there's that game we always make fun of Eric about. Let's do it.
Yeah. I did want to mention the stuff that got bumped. Devon, which is one of the GIF series, the only one I ever owned in my collection, but it's not there anymore.
By the way, I like to say, and Devon is my number 11, by the way.
Okay.
I like to say I was really disappointed to see that they're reprinting 4 of the games from the GIF series.
Yeah.
But not Devon.
Oh.
They're I believe it's Cosmos. I forget who's reprinting them. Oh, no, not Cosmos. Anyway, someone's reprinting them, and they're reprinting Yinch, Gipf, Zertz, and not Punked. What else was there? Well, Well, anyway, it's not Devon, which saddens me because Devon is my second favorite of that series. Yinch is my favorite.
I guess that means they're just abandoning the whole 6 games in a sequence, greater overarching game.
No one ever did that, Eric. Come on. Did you know anybody who ever did that?
I know one guy who planned to try.
Who plans? Remember, this game came out in 2001.
I think he's still working on getting that opponent together.
Is that you?
I don't know.
Is it? Are you
will
this
have to
one
ask
guy?
him. No, it wasn't me.
Oh. Okay, for those who don't know what we're talking about, they made these little things. What were they called?
Oh, potentials.
Potentials for pieces for each of these games that you could use in other games. It was like this story arc. It's very confusing.
I think you put the potentials into GIF, and then when you captured those pieces, you'd then go and play a game of that other game, and then whoever won that game would gain control of the piece. I don't even know how it worked.
Yes. Now, but this is possibly the greatest series of abstract games ever designed.
Sure.
Okay, anyway. Well, that's a lot of talk for a game. It didn't even make our top 10, but all right, go ahead.
It was. Voldampf, Martin Wallace's game that was sort of a proto-Age of Steam. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, Age of Steam totally wiped that off the map.
Yeah, it did, but it was still interesting. Dawn was sort of a stock game that was an early precursor of Mogul, and Frocht Express, which is a card-based train game, pick-up and deliver game that I liked a lot. Anyway, let's do it!
Here we go.
Number 10.
We'll begin with Split. This is the revised edition of the card game. It's sort of a double deck of cards, and each card has half of a card on it. And the object is to match the two halves of these cards together. But you can also do imperfect matches, weak matches. So a red king with a black king can be put together, and you get some sort of benefit for that. But someone can then steal those cards by giving you a stronger match. So the red king, black king, if I get the other red king, I can take your red king, put them together in front of me, and now I'm scoring that particular pair. But then the ultimate is to get the two exact cards together, and then you get the strongest match possible. Those can't be stolen, and you're trying to get rid of all of your cards by making all of these matches. It has sort of a rummy cube aspect where you're looking at the table, and as more stuff gets played to the table, your options increase. I liked it, and so much so that my family really enjoys it. I've had to track down several copies of this game via eBay in order to give as gifts. I still enjoy it at family gatherings. My number 10, Split.
Yeah, I like Split, but it's okay for me.
Yeah.
My number 10, I bet you it's going to come in 4th on Eric's list.
We'll see.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Risk 2210 AD. Now it's common to see many versions of Risk with little rule tweaks and stickers and stuff, but to my knowledge, this is the first Risk to actually tweak the system and turn it into more of a gamer's game, less of a mass market thing. It had tons of little minis, cool little mechs, played only 5 turns, so it had a finite end. You're playing for victory points, essentially. Had lots of action cards, really added complexity to Risk, and made it a gamer's game.
It also made
several
it a
have
game
done
that has broken more friendships than almost any other game.
It's quite possible. There have been some angry, tense moments around Risk 2210 AD. Still, a really interesting game. It was my number 9 last time as well, and it's my number 9 this time.
Yeah, this is almost like a precursor to Risk Legacy. You can feel bits of it there.
Mm-hmm.
My number 9 is Fubi. Now, Fubi that's Fubi. It's a little soccer game. You ever play this one, Eric?
No.
This is one of those expensive dexterity games. And the outside of the board, it's a soccer game. The outside of the board is this like really plastic fabric, springy type thing. So if there's a little metal ball, when it hits it, it bounces off of it. And then you have these little pegs that are in the board, and you have a stick that looks like the sticks that you stick into that sugar and stick and eat it. What a
Lick-O-Maid?
Yeah, not really. They actually look like popsicle sticks. I don't know. They're plastic sticks. And so on your turn, you hit the ball towards your opponent's goal. and you're trying to bounce it off the wall and around these pegs into the opponent's goal. Yeah, I don't even know if you can get this game anymore, but I liked it a lot. And it was pricey, hard to store. It's kind of one of those games you'd find in the middle of the dexterity room in Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
But I liked it, so it's on my list. Fubi.
Number 8.
Number 8 for me is Flower Power, the Cosmos 2-player game about laying down fields of flowers. It has very a domino-style play. You pull out these tiles and they'll have different flowers on them. You're trying to create contiguous groups of flowers. There's also sort of an uncontested zone in the middle, a neutral zone that you can put flowers into, but you need to have the largest group on your side in order to claim those, and they can be stolen by the other player. You can plant weeds on the other side. It's one that I, champion all the time. It has slipped a little bit. It was number 5 last time we did the list. It's number 8 now. My wife and I don't play it quite as often, but I think it's going to come out with the kids soon. Flower Power, still going strong, my number 8.
There are rumors.
What?
There are rumors this might be reprinted.
Really?
Rumors only.
Okay.
But they are reprinting much of that line.
Ooh.
Cosmos is back, people. Cosmos is back. It's exciting.
Oh, boy.
I don't really care if they ever reprint Flower Power.
Oh, okay. But I'm excited.
My number 8, which was 7 in 2001, or whenever I did my list last, is eBay, the electronic talking game. This is a game that when I say it, you're like, nah, that's not going to be good. And then when you see it, you're like, yeah, I'm right. Definitely not good. And considering the fact that you could buy it at KB for like $5 in 2002, did not help matters.
Yeah.
But it is a really good auction game. It's an electronic game, and as I found, it's hard to play in conventions. But the thing will say blue, bid. And so you have these cards, and you're putting them on top of a pile. There's 3 different items on the table that are under bid at any point. So you put these cards out, and randomly, one of those items will end. And whoever's card is on top wins the bid, but then they lose that card. So you're slowly losing your money cards, and you get these items, and it shows you what the value is supposed to be on the front, and on the back it can be that value or half that value or double that value. And if you get items of sets, they can be worth more. It's pretty simple. It's a fixed time limit game and a lot of fun. If you ever see a copy of this somewhere, certainly check it out.
Cool.
That's eBay, the electronic talking game.
Interesting note, when we did this list 5 years ago, you know who our guests were on that podcast?
The head of eBay, or was it Steve Bonacor?
We mentioned them earlier. It was Steve and Dave from The Spiel.
Really? That was only 5 years ago?
That 5 years ago when this was 10 years, looking back 10 years, they were our guests to do the top 10 list.
Apparently my brain loses a lot in 5 years.
Number 7.
Number 7, Tom and I sync up with Medina. And this one's seen a little bit of resurgence with the Stronghold Games reprint. Medina has gorgeous wooden pieces. You're building sort of a city. You're building clusters of buildings, but you can't actually claim them. They're not yours until you lock them down. But as soon as you put your claiming piece on that style of building, that color of building, you can't make it much bigger. You can open it up a little bit, but you're trying to sort of a push your luck thing, make buildings big, but knowing that your opponents could pounce on them at any moment. When do I pounce? When do I claim something? And then when you're done, you've created this lovely walled city. Really neat game.
Yeah. It's there's just something about building. Now, had you played it last time we did this list, or did you not play it till the reprint came out?
I'm not sure. I think I had played it, but I hadn't played it recently enough that it was fresh in my mind. This hit the table at the most recent Dice Tower Con with the new Stronghold version, and I remembered how much I liked it. It's really a strong game.
Yeah, this is one of those games that, visually, when you're finished, it's just like, ooh, let's take a picture. Mm-hmm. Because we have built this city. We built this city out of wood and rock and roll.
Yes.
But I really find it fascinating. There's a little bit of like, ooh, am I going to take this thing? Or I'll make it a little bit bigger, then I'll take it. But wait, Eric might take it.
Yep.
A lot of, pride in having the biggest part of a city. Just a lot of cool things. If you guys have never tried this one, I recommend it highly. That is Medina.
Number 6.
My number 6 is going to show up on Tom's list in just a little bit, so I'm going to put a couple of extra engines on my ship and rocket on over to where he's going to talk about it.
My number 6 was number 1 last time. This is one of the games from Martin Wallace, and that's Liberte. Now, I think Liberte is a very good, excellent game. It is starting to show its age slightly, and I found there's so many people who have a hard time playing this game. It's because they feel like it's chaotic. It's not that chaotic. It's supposed to feel chaotic. It's the French Revolution. One of the things I like about Liberte is the alternate winning victory conditions. There could be a royalist, basically you put down the people, or there could be a revolution, or it can just end and people get points. And you're trying to control different areas so that you can control the votes in that area. And then you want to like be with the party out of the 3 different parties that has the most votes. I like it. There's a lot going on in it. It's not that complex, but it's not easy to play. Or play and feel like you know what you're doing, which I think hurts it some, but I still think it's a fine game. That's Liberte.
Yeah, it's a strong game, and even though it wasn't one of my favorites, that alternate victory condition is kind of cool because in a lot of games, if you know you're not going to win through the basic victories, there's not a whole lot you can do, but there's actually this alternate victory that you can start pushing for and maybe get some help with, and that's a real danger to the leaders of the traditional victory condition that have to watch out for that. If you're not careful, that victory will be stolen away from you by the revolutionaries or something. It's a neat concept.
Number 5.
Number 5 showed up on my list before. In number 3, this is Die Magier von Pangea, a game I like to champion quite a bit. You're moving tiles around using magic powers and spells to adjust the landscape, purchase amulets from other players' characters, lock down sections of the board to make it difficult for people to move around in. It's a neat little game and one I have a lot of fun with. Number 5. Die Magier von Pangea from Queen.
I always feel like Eric is the only person championing this game.
I'm not. I've run into people at conventions that are like, I played this game because you recommended it. I need to play this again with you right now because it's awesome.
Hearsay.
Sure.
I have not met these people.
No.
All right, my number 5 was Eric's number 6, and that is Starship Catan. Now, this is kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, a popular game, Catan. Let's make a game, Starfarers of Catan. Now, since Catan had a popular 2-player game, let's make a 2-player game of the Starfarers one. Like, okay, right, whatever. And then you play it, and you're like, wow. First of all, how did you fit all these pieces in the box? Because I can't close the lid. But secondly, it's like, this game actually has a little bit of trading involved, and it's 2 players. And it has some back and forth, and it has a memory element, which I normally hate. And yet here, it works really well. I like this game. I really wish it wasn't out of print. However, they re-implemented it in 2014 as Northwind from Z-Man Games. It's pretty much the same game, except you can play multiple players. There's some differences in there. You have like pirate ships that you're building up. But here you're building up a spaceship. It had a really cool retro theme, the same theme that Starfarers of Catan had. Really enjoy this 2-player game. It's still, in my opinion, one of the best of the Cosmos 2-player line.
Yeah, I mean, I got to play this for the first time just a couple of years ago with Jeff Engelstein and really liked it. It's probably one, part of me says, I should track down a copy. I really want this game. Not sure how often it would hit the table. I had the 2-player Settlers game for a while, and that just wasn't hitting the table either. But it's a really good game. I want to play it more.
Well, you can get Northwind.
I guess I could.
Number 4.
Number 4 showed up on Tom's list not too long ago, and by golly, he was right because he cheated. And that's Winner's Circle, which actually came out as Royal Turf in 2001.
Well, technically, you can cheat in Royal Turf, too, I guess.
You could. You're betting on racehorses. And so there's this betting aspect of the game where you start out. Each horse has different statistics. You can sort of see what the probabilities are of them moving forward in the race. And you've got 7 horses. You put out, I think, 4 bidding tokens. One of them is a bluff bid. There's a couple of ones, and then there's a double. And that's what you're hoping to win. And then the race comes. It's a simple dice fest, and you've got a die with a bunch of symbols on it, and some of those symbols appear more often than others. And you move the horses along, but sometimes you're forced to move a horse you're not betting on, and so you're hoping to sort of dead end them or move them when it's not advantageous to do so. Each horse can only move until, or you can't move a horse twice until all of the other horses have moved, so you're sort of forced to move horses you don't want to. And there's a lot of cheering, and it's a great family game. It works very well. I like Winner's Circle, and it's one I haven't played in a while and should do so soon.
I agree here. There's a lot of horse games, and there are many horse games that I like better than this one. But this one introduced that idea of moving all the horses, at it rolling, and it's one of those games where sometimes near the end people are shouting.
Yes, there's shouting.
Like games where people shout at the end. My number 4 is on Eric's list coming up. But you got to figure out what this one is. I'll give you a clue. It's if you look right now, it's on its side on my shelf.
Number 3.
And you have guessed correctly, so you get a token that you can then use later. That's Zendo. We're talking about Zendo. This is a game using the Looney Pyramids. You create sort of a rule that the other players need to figure out. Something like, the number of pips on the pieces is odd. And whoever has made this rule makes a cluster of pieces that follows the rule and a cluster of pieces that doesn't follow the rule. And then the players start building clusters of pieces to make guesses. And the master says, yes, that follows the rule. No, that doesn't follow the rule. And eventually the players gain guessing stones that they can try and guess the rule and maybe disprove something. Or the master says, yeah, that fits everything at the table, but here's a cluster that doesn't follow the rule but follows the rule you guessed. It's a very thinky game. It can get a little confusing, and it has this sort of Zen Buddhist overarching theme that Looney Labs is going to ditch when they produce Zendo, which is Xendo. And I don't know when that's coming, but it's at some point.
2017.
Neat game. That's the 2017 one?
I think so.
Buh.
I believe it will be kickstarted. If
you can do it. You can get just get like 4 stashes of these pyramids and some stones, and you can play Zendo. It doesn't require a boxed version to do it.
Yeah, but I think you need more than just one set of pyramids. It takes a bit of work to get a set for Zendo.
Maybe.
One of those pyramid packs is not enough.
No, you need one stash of each color.
No, you need more than that. I don't believe one stash is enough. I forget. I asked them about this and they told me and I can't remember.
Interesting.
If I was not so lazy, I would actually reach over 5 feet and pull the box and look at it.
I don't have the boxed version. I just play with it. I've got, like 6 stashes of pyramids just in a big old box. So it's worked fine for me.
My number 3 is Vabank. Yay, I'm always cheering for this game. This is my Die Magier von Pangea.
There you go.
Vabank, I think I'm the only fan in the world of this game, but I love it. It's basically just a bluffing game. That's all there is. There's these gambling tables that they're making piles of money, and each turn you pick which table you're going to gamble at, but someone might be stealing from you. Or maybe they doubled all the money, but you're not sure which one they've done, and you're just guessing, and you're hoping you guess correctly, and you're handing out millions of dollars. It's so exciting and silly and fun. Works great with 6 players. Components are terrible, but I've upgraded mine, so it's okay. That was a run-on sentence.
Yes, it was.
Vabank is my number 3.
Number 2.
My number 2 was one of my entries into the hobby, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. That's Transamerica, the train game. Very simple, terrific gateway game. You were trying to connect 5 cities. You draw them randomly, and they're different sections of the board, different areas of the United States. There's also a Trans-Europa that came out a couple years later. And you are simply placing wooden track. You have 2 tracks that you can place on a turn, unless you're going over a river or a mountain, and then you only get 1. And you can eventually connect to other people's networks, and doing that at the right time. The timing is important because they can then use your network if you're using theirs, and you want to be the first to connect all 5 of your cities. It is best with an expansion that came out a little bit later, but even in its basic version, as a gateway game, Transamerica is a solid contender, and my number 2, both this time and 5 years ago.
Many people like Transamerica.
You are not one of them.
I am not. However, if it wasn't for Transamerica, Eric would not be on our show today.
Because my review of those little sticks, the expansion, got me on the show.
Actually, I think it was the original thing was like little sticks to stick them up your nose or something.
Well, you told me to do that.
Actually, no, I did not. And I have the email chains to prove it. It was your idea to do that whole initial thing.
Well, no. Okay, no. You wanted me to do an ad for little wooden sticks.
I didn't say anything about sticking them up your nose.
Well, you didn't tell me not to stick them up my nose.
Fine. I'll accept that statement. Anyhow, yes, Eric did a 72-second review of the expansion. I was like, he makes me want to play a game I don't like again.
Yeah, see? And it's a cool expansion. It works.
It is. It is a cool expansion. My number 2 is a CCG called Warlord. Warlord, I believe AEG had it for a while. You can find it now by going to conventions and going to their CCG sections. Warlord is Dungeons and Dragons card game, basically, or a D20 system where you have a warlord. You have to kill your opponent's warlord, but they're going to have troops that they're putting out. Each of those troops will be attacking other troops, and you're rolling a 20-sided die all the time, which some people can't stand. I think is very fun. I have a great time with this, especially since the CCG is out of print. I just bought a pile of cards, made up some decks, and just played them against each other. Very fun. It's probably never going to come back in print, but you can probably find it. That's Warlord.
And finally, number 1.
My number 1 was my number 1 game all the way at the top for some time, and that's Entdecker, Exploring New Horizons. It's a game about sailing, discovering islands. Everybody controls one boat that enters at different points on the board based on where you want to start. It's got a little bit of a gambling element to it. You pay for a certain number of tiles, hope to find an island, and then put some sort of presence on it. You can put a little dude on there. You can put a fort on there and make people pay to pass you. You can put a big settlement on there. When these islands complete, whoever has the biggest presence on them will get more points. And then the little dudes get to go stand in front of these huts to earn more points. I love the map that emerges when you're all done. It certainly slipped in my estimation. I forget even where I have it now in the top 100, but it's still on the top 100. And one I enjoy playing from time to time. Entdecker, my number 1 from 2001.
My number 1 is Dragon's Gold. I love Dragon's Gold. I know Eric's not a fan of it because I tricked and deceived and beat him in it.
This game stresses me out.
It does, because this is a game in which you're killing dragons together. It's not hard to kill a dragon, but what's hard is splitting the loot, because you have 1 minute to split the loot right now, and if you don't make a deal, nobody gets anything. You can't make future deals. You can't talk about past deals. Well, I guess you can talk about them, but they can't affect the thing. You have to say right now what's going on. And Eric's right, it's stressful, but I love it, and it's hilarious to watch. Don't play with Jason. Or Eric.
Yeah, I'll just cry. I'll be really mopey.
I beat him. All right, let's see what our contributors think.
Hi, this is Marty and Tony from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and this is a no-brainer. Lord of the Rings CCG from Decipher. This was the game that really got us into the hobby. This was the game that really got us plugged into the gaming community. And Tony, if you don't say the same thing, I'm going to flip out.
Yes, Marty, Lord of the Rings. That was the game that started it off for us. Remember it just like it was yesterday. Great TCG. Loved playing it. And to this day, I, too, really enjoy that resource mechanic.
This is Jared Whitley with Board Game Breakfast. So, looking over 2001, I didn't find a lot that jumped out at me. I was afraid I was going to have to go with an ironic choice, like Dungeons & Dragons Clue or The Game of Life in Monstropolis. I'll be honest, While Settlers of Catan may have broken the Eurogaming market open in the mid-90s, I don't think the industry really took off until Puerto Rico came out in 2002, which would be 1 year later than what we're looking at today. But lo, what game should appear within my view but Winner's Circle? A game of probability, horse racing, and fun. Indeed, in my own board game group, the only game more popular than Winner's Circle is X-Wing, which says a lot for a game from 2001.
Jeff Gamble here from the Longview. I'd have to say that my favorite game from 2001 would probably have to be Martin Wallace's Liberté. This is a game that I just really still truly enjoy. I have the original Warfrog edition and the three factions and the kind of three-way tug of war that this game represents and the kind of sudden death victory conditions that can happen. All of these things that just lead to a really tense and fun and exciting game. It's very fluid. It's very dynamic. It's kind of hard to describe, but it sure is a whole lot of fun. The card play is clever. Everything about the design feels very thematic, even though it's kind of abstract when you play it. You really do get the feeling of the different factions kind of vying for control and influence and the different battles that are being fought and the leaders and the cards and everything about the game to me is just a whole lot of fun. So that's my pick for top game of 2001, Liberté.
Hey there, everybody. This is Sean from the Dukes of Dice podcast. And looking at my top game of 2001, there were two that came to mind, both designed by Mike Fitzgerald. Mystery Rummy, the Jack the Ripper version, and then also Wyatt Earp. And considering it, I got to give it to Wyatt Earp. Both amazing rummy games. You're basically drawing some cards, you're playing some cards in melds, and then you're having to discard a card which potentially can get used by your opponents. What's really cool about Wyatt Earp is that you are a lawman trying to hunt down these notable outlaws. And at the end of the round, whoever has laid out the most points in melds for a particular outlaw is going to get the bounty on that outlaw, which is going to change based on different cards that get played. Overall, I love rummy games. Mike Fitzgerald is the master of them. That's Wyatt Earp.
Hello, my friends. It's the Game Boy Geek here. This year, my favorite game was Wyatt Earp, designed by Mike Fitzgerald. It is a rummy-style game. It's similar to the Mystery Rummy series, yet it's not in that series, but in my opinion, it's the best of them. It's got an awesome theme. It just got reprinted last year by Eagle Griffin Games. The tiles are thick. They redid the rules. It's a fun rummy-style game where you're messing with your buddies, using special abilities, trying to make sure nobody runs away with too much of the pot because they'll get too many points, and you're jockeying for position. It's a ton of fun.
Hello, chap. It's Barry here. Now, my favourite game of 2001 is Space Odyssey by Bowie, Kubrick, and Clark. No, joking all aside. My favourite game is Munchkin. Yeah, that's the only good game that seemed to have come out of 2001. My favourite version is Star Munchkin, because there's a Star Munchkin waiting on my shelf to be played with. So there you go, Star Munchkin. Wow, Munchkin anyway.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Zielinski, best game from 2001. I'm going to go with a little nostalgic pick here. My game was designed by Brigitte Prokornik, and my particular copy came from GameRight. Unfortunately, it's only ranked 7,451 on the Board Game Geek ranking, but it is number 317 on the children's game rank, and it is a game called Hiss. I love this game. I played it with my kids so many times. It is unbelievable. We played it 2-player, 3-player, 4-player. We played it in airports, at school. We played it everywhere. And it was just a lot of fun. It's basically a color matching and shape matching game as you're trying to build snakes and you try to cap them off by putting on the head and the tail. You know, it's color, shape matching, push your luck, you know, all kind of combined. It's a great game. You know, even on the box, it says you can start playing with kids at 4 years old with this game. So give it a try. Hiss.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jeanette, the Metal Meeple. And in 2001, I was mostly playing collectible miniature games and some collectible card games, but a game that came out in 2001 that I used to have in my top 10 for the longest time is Hive. I really enjoy it. It's a really, really fun game, and I'm looking forward to anything they release in the future, and I really hope they release some more expansions for it.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. With serious head nods to Hive, Wyatt Earp, and Winner's Circle, aka Royal Turf, I'm going to go with one of my favorite games still, and that's San Marco. Sure, the board is boring looking, but the pieces and components are cool, even on Hobbit cards. And this 4-player game is still one of my favorite games. The I Split You Choose mechanic is a central part of the game, not only a good parenting technique if you have a boy in your house. This is a great use of this mechanic, an area control game, and it's quite fun. Highly recommended by me.
This is Graham from Four Corners of the Board. For my game of 2001, it was another easy choice for me, as the games I have or have played from 2001 is pretty small. For me, Hive is the standout game from 2001. Small, quick, fantastic pieces, and a good brain burner. It's only a 2-player game, and unfortunately, is not one my wife enjoys, so it does not hit to the table too often.
Lot of love for Wyatt Earp and Hive.
Yeah, I didn't mention either one of those folks because I don't like either one. I know, I'm a heretic.
Yeah.
But
I played the Lord of the Rings TCG, at least briefly. I was on an internet radio station and an employee of Decipher sent me some stuff. It was like my first review copy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do a review, but he's like, hey, you play games, try out this stuff. I work for a company called Decipher and we make all these games. I'm like, who? But the game was neat.
Did you really say that who part?
I didn't say that out
okay.
loud, no. Yeah, but I wasn't aware that Decipher was awesome at the time.
All right, folks, people's choice. I don't know. I had some kind of internet glitch up here. So you can look on our website underneath this one and you can find out what the people's choice is. I apologize. But if I was guessing, I would guess that Transamerica would be pretty high. Royal Turf might be high, depending. I think I'm going to take a guess that Hive would be number one on people's choice.
Interesting. Transamerica, well, no, some people really don't like Transamerica.
No, it's not so much that, though. Hive is still played today.
That's true.
Transamerica is not played as much. The Ticket to Ride came along and pile drived it.
Perhaps.
So I'm going to go with, I think the people's choice number one is Hive, and then maybe Transamerica, and then I'll say number three. I love how I'm making this up. Maybe Royal Turf. That's a tough one. And then number four, we'll go with Risk 2210. And
I bet that's on there. Yeah.
I'm afraid to go. 5 Wide Air, because a lot of people like that one.
Okay. Well, maybe if you figure out the glitch, future Eric can come in and tell us if you're right.
Guy's so smug. All right.
Hey, future Eric here to the rescue. Yes, I do have the information. It got lost. I'm here in the computer core here at Dice Tower Central, and it looks like it was attached to the shout-out that we forgot from earlier in the show. It was stapled for some reason. Anyway, the number 10 game in the People's Choice was Funkenschlag, the precursor to Power Grid. Number 9 was Risk 2210. Number 8, Villa Poletti. Number 7 was Devon. Number 6, Medina. Number 5, Starship Catan. Number 4, Winner's Circle. Number 3, Transamerica. Nice. Number 2, Munchkin. What? And number 1 is Hive. So, yeah, Tom got that right. Back to the past, Tom and Eric.
Hey, I think we're done.
We are.
That's exciting. And you know why it's exciting? Because the next numbers show is just one of those numbers that makes me happy.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, folks, we really appreciate you listening. Don't forget, if you're interested in a Dice Tower cruise, check it out. Don't delay. We would love to have you come with us. We're really trying to run it as cost low as possible. We're not making money off it, really. The extra money is to pay for things that will make the cruise better. I just want to do it. I think it would be a fun activity for everybody. Anyhow, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 443, was recorded on January 28th, 2016. Coming up next week, how do you decide how many players to use for the first play of a game? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassel.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Stubborn Parental Sisters provided by The Resist Ants. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at thedicetower@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Push Your Luck podcast, the DC 6th Generation, the Geek All-Stars, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and Dice Tower Showdown at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. You know, this whole concept of not being able to get away from somebody you didn't want to hang out with on the cruise, I'm just picturing playing hide and seek as they come around stalking you on the boat.
Well, a cruise ship is a good place to hide from other people.
Is it?
Oh, they're big. There's like all these crooks and nannies everywhere.
Crooks and nannies?
Isn't that the right word?
Crooks and nannies.
Isn't that right? Am I wrong?
Crooks and nannies. It's nooks and crannies.
Oh, I did a spoonerism.
This show is sponsored by Little Painted Wooden Sticks, the all-purpose method of transportation. Whether it's as a village road, a cross-country train track, or a mystical bridge connecting island chains, they're the perfect representation for anything long and skinny. You can even stick them up your nose. Note, please don't stick them up your nose. Wherever you need to go, get there with Little Painted Wooden Sticks. Use as directed.